Well, employers are being accused of using the coronavirus pandemic as an excuse to get rid of domestic workers. Cape Labour and Industrial Consultants says people do not cite COVID-19 as a reason for this, as this is grounds for an unfair dismissal case. But it says most domestic workers do not have the resources to approach the CCMA nor the Labour Court. Many are also not registered with UIF. So let's discuss this with consultant Bernard Reisner. Thank you so much, Mr. Reisner, for your time. I understand that you have had numerous sort of employers come into you wanting to terminate the services of their domestic workers due to COVID-19, but they've been hit with a brick wall. What is that particular challenge? And also, how many, sort of employers are we talking about here? What's the picture that you can paint for us?
Okay, thanks very much. Understandably, there are a raft of labour legislation protecting domestic workers in South Africa. And I specialise in this sector specifically on behalf of employers who wish to terminate the domestic worker services due to various factors being misconduct, incapacity, or generally operational requirements. However, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, another sector has come into being in that there are various employers, and it varies from employer to employer, who have consulted with me in respect to wishing to terminate a domestic worker services due to having contracted COVID-19. And as I expressed earlier, it's very important to understand the various labour legislation in this country that is protective of the parties concerned. There is just quickly, in terms of the domestic worker sector, there's what we call the Sectoral Determination 7 domestic worker sector. That's a general provisions governing employers and employees in the sector. Right. And then there's what we call the Employment Equity Act. And the Employment Equity Act prohibits unfair discrimination on the grounds of illness in the workplace or health in the workplace. And that's a very prominent act. And there are serious ramifications in the case of a breach or a non-compliance.
Yeah, take me through some of those ramifications then, in case there is a breach.
The implications are, if a domestic worker has to be dismissed, let's say on the grounds of COVID, the domestic worker could approach the CCMA for relief. And the relief that the domestic worker could claim from a CCMA arbitration award could be up to 12 months remuneration and or reinstatement. And that has severe ramifications for an employer if they have unfairly dismissed the person, and it takes months to get to the CCMA before the hearing, the arbitration hearing, is heard and an award is made.
Can I just jump in there, Mr. Reisner? Maybe let me just jump in there because of time. I mean, we are talking about, workers that unfortunately don't earn enough oftentimes to have the resources to approach the CCMA nor the Labour Court. I mean, in this instance, how are then domestic workers sort of assisted or even empowered to reach, a point where they can approach the CCMA or the Labour Court?
You must understand there are certain small percentage of domestic workers that are members of trade unions in that sector. Right. And the trade unions, of course, then take that matter forth on behalf of their member. But the domestic worker, as you know, and as you said, can declare labour dispute at the CCMA on their own volition at no cost to themselves, and they do get some sort of assistance from the CCMA officials themselves, and they are guided through that process. But still, as you expressed, there is not enough resources to act, and people acting for them. within the realms of the CCMA.
Yeah, and
So
I suppose that's
sometimes
where the
domestic
input
worker
of the unions as well could come into play.
Is a non-union member and then has to go forth herself through that system.
All right, then. Well, due to time, we have to leave it there. But thank you so much for just highlighting some of these issues. And as reiterated, I suppose that's where even the unions have to come into play and try and assist these domestic workers, especially in an incident where they are unfairly dismissed. Thank you so much to Bernard Reisner.